The air in the living room hung heavy, thick with the kind of silence that screams louder than words ever could. Mark stood frozen, his hand still gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, the faint clink of his wedding ring against the granite echoing like a gunshot in his mind. His wife, Emily, sat on the couch, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Go sleep on the couch tonight," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut but trembling just enough to betray her own unease. Mark's chest tightened, not because of the words, but because of the way she said them, like she was pushing him out of her heart, not just their bed. He wanted to argue, to demand why, but the weight of the past few weeks pressed against his ribs. The late-night phone calls she dismissed as work, the way her laughter felt forced when he asked about her day, the perfume he didn't recognize clinging to her coat. He'd ignored it all, chalking it up to stress, to his own insecurities. But now, as her words hung between them, doubt clawed at him, raw and unrelenting. What's going on?" His voice cracked, betraying the calm he was desperate to hold on to. She didn't look up, just shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Just go, Mark. Please." The finality in her tone was a blade, slicing through the fragile thread of trust he'd been clinging to. He grabbed a blanket from the hall closet, the one they used to share during movie nights, and shuffled to the couch. The fabric smelled faintly of her lavender shampoo, a cruel reminder of the intimacy they'd lost. As he lay there, staring at the ceiling, the house creaked around him, each sound amplifying the questions swirling in his mind. What had changed? When had she stopped looking at him like he was her world? The next morning, Mark woke to the sound of Emily's car pulling out of the driveway. She hadn't said goodbye, hadn't even left a note. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, and he grabbed it, hoping for a message from her, an explanation, anything. Instead, it was a text from Sarah, Emily's best friend since college. "Hey, you okay? Heard you and Em had a rough night. There's a bed for you at my house if you need it." The words hit like a punch to the gut. How did Sarah know? Why was she offering him a place to stay? Suspicion curled in his stomach, cold and heavy. Mark didn't reply. Instead, he scrolled through his call history, noticing the frequent late-night calls between Emily and Sarah. He'd always thought their friendship was unbreakable, a sisterhood he admired. But now the pieces started shifting, forming a picture he wasn't ready to face. He remembered the way Sarah lingered at their dinner parties, her hand brushing Emily's arm a little too long, her whispers that made Emily's eyes light up in a way Mark hadn't seen in months. He spent the day in a fog, replaying every moment, every glance, every excuse. By evening, when Emily returned, her face was a mask of exhaustion. "We need to talk," Mark said, his voice steadier than he felt. She nodded, sitting across from him at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. What's going on with you and Sarah?" The question slipped out before he could stop it, raw and unguarded. Her eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing her face before she masked it with a forced laugh. "Sarah? She's my best friend, Mark. You know that." "Don't lie to me," he said, his voice low, trembling with the weight of what he was about to lose. "I saw the texts. I know she's offering me a place to stay. Why would she do that unless she knows something I don't?" Emily's face crumpled, and for a moment he thought she might cry. But then she straightened, her jaw set. "You want the truth? Fine. I've been confiding in Sarah because I don't know how to talk to you anymore. You're always working, always distracted. I feel like I'm screaming and you don't hear me." Her words stung, but they didn't explain the secrecy, the distance. "That's not all of it," Mark pressed, his heart pounding. "There's something else. I can feel it." She looked away, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. The silence stretched, suffocating, until she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been spending time with Sarah. More than I should. It wasn't supposed to happen, but I have feelings for her." The world tilted. Mark's breath caught, his mind scrambling to process the confession. "Feelings?" he repeated, the word tasting bitter. "What does that mean, Emily? Are you saying you're in love with her?" Her silence was answer enough. The room spun, and Mark gripped the table to steady himself. He wanted to yell, to demand how she could throw away 10 years of marriage, but all he could manage was, "How long?" "A few months," she admitted, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you, Mark, but I don't know who I am anymore. The confession shattered him, each word a shard embedding itself in his chest. He thought of their wedding day, her smile as they danced under the stars, the promises they'd made. Had it all been a lie? Or had something in her changed, something he'd failed to notice? He stood, needing air, needing space. I can't do this right now, he said, grabbing his keys. He drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring through the tears he refused to let fall. Eventually, he found himself at Sarah's apartment, not because he wanted her comfort, but because he needed answers. Sarah opened the door, her expression a mix of guilt and pity. Mark, I'm so sorry, she began, but he cut her off. Did you know she was married? Did you care? His voice was raw, shaking with the pain he could no longer contain. It wasn't planned, Sarah said, her eyes glistening. I love her, Mark. I didn't want to hurt you. Her words were a final blow, confirming the betrayal he'd feared. He turned away, unable to bear the sight of her. Back in his car, he sat in the dark, the weight of his shattered trust pressing down on him. He thought of Emily, of the life they'd built, now crumbling like sand through his fingers. When he returned home, Emily was waiting, her eyes red from crying. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, reaching for him. But Mark stepped back, the distance between them a chasm too wide to cross. I don't know if I can trust you again, he said, his voice hollow. I need time. As he walked back to the couch, the blanket still smelled of lavender, but now it felt like a ghost of what they'd had. He lay down, staring at the ceiling, knowing that some betrayals cut too deep to heal. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The man who woke up on that couch tomorrow would never be the same.